Well, for my birthday last year, my wife Alicia gave me it was a 5-year journal. So every single day there is a prompting sentence, something to prompt a reflection, and you go through the journal 5 years. So you see what you write over a 5-year period. One of the more recent days had this to think about. I would sum up the last year by these 3 words. It took me a little bit to think about how I would kind of encapsulate an entire year within 3 years. Or 3 words. I wonder if that would take some thought to think about for you as well. What if we turned it around? What if we turned it around and asked, what are 3 words that would define our lives as we move forward from this place? What 3 words would you describe, or would describe how you want to live? What 3 words would define your vision for the future? This morning, I want us to look at 3 words. They are tucked at the bottom of our first reading from Acts, verse 43. It says, "All the prophets testify about him," meaning Jesus, "that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name." Now, that one verse, we could dive deep into that in many, many different ways. But 3 words. Let's look at 3 words as I think they declare why we are here and what Easter is all about. The first word, everyone. All the prophets declare that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. No one is left out. No one is excluded. The word everyone is gloriously inclusive and wonderfully vague. Because as soon as we put classifications upon it, it's not everyone, is it? Imagine if I hoisted up here a plate of cookies. I don't have a plate of cookies, I just want to let you know that. If I said, I'm offering a plate of cookies for everyone in this room, except for those with blue eyes. Well, then it's not an offering for everyone, is it? The gift of God in Jesus, in his resurrection, is a gift that is offered and bestowed upon each and every one of us. Everyone is extended the hand of grace. And all the benefits that we talk about of the resurrection, the eternal presence of God's peace and God's love in our lives, the forgiveness of sins, the removal of everything that takes us away from God, that has a barrier between us and God, that sense of inner healing that comes from living in a connection with the Spirit of Jesus, a new vibrancy of life when we live with Jesus. It is all available without restriction. It is offered to everyone. It used to be thought that that wasn't the case. God's presence, God's blessings, God's holiness was defined for just a few people. The spiritual elite, the superstars, the children of Israel. And so at the beginning of our reading, Peter is standing in a room that would previously have been cut off. They wouldn't have been a part of all of that proclamation of goodness. And yet Peter is seeing how the reality of Christ's risen presence makes its way to the Gentile people, those who were thought to be cut off and removed from all God's blessings, says, now I know that God shows no partiality. Now I know that the arms of Jesus is extended to absolutely everyone. Let me ask you, has there ever been a reason where you have ever thought that you were cut off from God? That all the stuff of God, all the stuff of Jesus, that doesn't make its way to you. Maybe some well-meaning but horribly inaccurate person made you feel like the things of God were not extended to you because maybe you wore the wrong clothes in church, or you had the wrong color of hair, or maybe because you went to the wrong church. Not so with God. Not so with the gift of Jesus. We listen to that word because Jesus is alive, because he rose from the dead. His life, his love, his grace, his forgiveness, it is extended to absolutely everyone, and that means you, because you are implicit in that word. And we can claim that because the gift of Christ's resurrection for us is not based on what we do. We simply receive it. That's the second word. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. There's a wonderful assurance there. It's not could possibly receive. It's not if you're really good receive. It's not maybe. It's receives. It's assured. The scandal of Easter is the reality of grace. Grace is the free gift. It's given freely. The free gift of God's Spirit working in us. We don't earn it. We don't buy it. We don't merit it. We don't manage it or make it happen. It is received by the good love of Christ poured out to us. If you read the Gospels, always after the resurrection, it's quite interesting. You never see people coming to Jesus. Jesus always goes to other people. In our Gospel reading, we have Mary sitting by the tomb, weeping. And Jesus comes to her, and she doesn't recognize him, but he comes. And she recognizes him when Jesus says her name. Speaks about her in her life, her identity. She doesn't recognize Jesus through her own intelligence. She doesn't recognize Jesus through her fine-tuned spirituality, through her acts of devotion. She recognizes the presence of Jesus when Jesus comes to her. When she hears his voice, it puts everything into right perspective. Let me ask you a pointed question. How much effort do you put in trying to do the right religious stuff? Right? Maybe church is about that. Right? Maybe Easter morning, we go to church on Easter morning. Well, my family has always gone to church on Easter morning, and it is something that we do. It is routine, it is tradition, and yeah, I like going to church on Easter morning, but it's about that routine. It's about that sense of muscling ourselves into the appropriate place in the pews on the morning. Maybe it's our own prayer life. Maybe we give a whole lot of time trying to decipher what the right words to use are. But whatever we try, whatever holy act we try to do, we find that no matter what, we are always left not experiencing what we really want to experience. That fullness of life, that vibrancy of faith. And sometimes we look at other people and say, they seem to have it. They seem to have an inner connection with God that rises through all the ups and downs of life, and I don't seem to have that. When Peter says, now I know that God is available to everyone whose heart is open to him, Peter is saying that the basis of our life in God is receiving the free gift of God's presence poured out to us in the resurrection of Jesus. It can be exhausting, always trying in our faith life, can't it? But when we talk about the things of God, when we talk about the forgiveness of sins, the sense of inner peace that this world cannot give, this hope that happens in times of hardship, the joy of the Lord which becomes an inner strength even through dark times and turmoil, and this connection with God in the presence of Jesus, these are not things that we make happen. These are gifts that we receive by Jesus who is here. Now that poses the obvious question. Well, how do I receive it? It's great, Reverend person, preacher man, that you said that everybody is invited into the